It is whatever today's date is. What's today?
Six.
October 6th, and we're proceeding with an agenda that has been circulated. Let me introduce who's around. Sarah Palermo is on Zoom because she tested positive for COVID, so she's doing the gatekeeping from home. And we have Ed Marin, the building inspector, Doug Hahn, the village engineer, he's actually village consultant engineer. Mary Ann Stessage is the village attorney, she's on Zoom. And on the board is Lori Davidowitz, Dan McGillicott, I'm Caesar Manfredi, the chairman, Mike Smith, and Kevin Thurman. And we have Mike Bafuco, who will take the place of Kevin when where Kevin is recused. All right, the order for this evening, minutes. The minutes of September 7th. Has everyone reviewed them and is satisfied?
Yes.
I make a motion to approve the minutes of September 7th.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? No opposed. Okay, the minutes are done. The order for this evening is number 1, Mercy College, 555 Broadway. Number 2 will be 62 Butterwood Lane West. Number 3 will be 3 Beechwood Road. Number 4 will be 77 South Buckout Street. Number 5 will be Field Terrace. And number 6 will be 30-40 South Broadway, sometimes known as the old fee property. Okay, number 1, Mercy College.
Good evening, Chairman, members of the board. My name is Seth Mandelbaum with the law firm of McCullough, Goldberger and Stout. I'm here with Tom Simmons once again, the Vice President of Facilities for the college. And we are here following up on last month's meeting. We did submit the information regarding inspection reports that the building inspector had requested at the last meeting. And Tom and I are happy to answer any questions that the board might have. If there are none, or if we can answer your questions satisfactorily, we'd ask the board to consider granting the request for a 5-year extension of the special permit this evening. Thank you.
Ed, you got the fire and police report you need?
Yep, they're all set.
And the inspections are all done?
Inspections are all done.
I just want to ask some updates. The tree planting that we approved a while ago, I guess you're going to do that in the spring. You got an update on that?
Sure. Tom, can you speak to that, please?
The spring,
Also, at some
the
point-
project on the Route 9 corridor, the piece out front?
Yes.
Caesar? Yeah, so we just bid those last week. We have our bid results and we're going to try to award maybe next week. And then they have, we see about a 14-month time frame for them to complete all the work. So the majority of the plantings will probably go in next season, but it's possible they might do some work this season. It's a large scale. As you know, there's a lot of different areas. So once we get a contractor on board, we'll have a better sense for their sequencing of the activities.
Did you ever get any input from the Aqueduct, New York State Parks, the regional people?
The input we got was that they were pleased with what we had done on the balance of the OCA on our Dobbs Ferry side of the campus. And the design details that we have in these plans mirror those. And they were happy with what we were going to address there. They did note the same thing that your folks did about the ponding on one side of the trail and one area, that make sure we could try to address that so there wasn't standing water on the side.
Yeah, I saw that ponding this morning, actually.
Yeah, we can fix
Okay.
that with the grading.
And just a reminder, we still haven't seen you at the ARB yet for those permit, to issue the permit for the front entrance.
On the signage, right?
Yes.
Yeah, but the whole project they haven't been bifurcated.
Okay. Tom, that's being handled by
By the,
by your team, right? The architectural team.
yes,
Last time I asked a question and I didn't get an answer, maybe this time. When you create the right-hand turn lane, the utility poles are going to need to be moved. And I assume you're working on that with appropriate power and cable people because they don't work together, they do it separately.
yes. So the project you approved, there was a sister project with the DOT work that has all that on there, Caesar, with the poles have to be moved back. The signaling system has to all be changed. It's a lot of work. We're happy with the bids where we got 4 pretty significant contractors that looked at both of the projects. We bid them at the same time. So we're hopeful we can try to coordinate those because there is a lot of logistics, as you alluded to. That pole on that corner drops back quite a bit.
Yeah, okay, thank you. Any questions from the board? Lori?
No
Bill?
questions.
I'm done. Mike?
No questions.
Sarah? Oh, I'm used to looking at you sitting down there, Sarah. Sarah, any public?
There's nobody raising their hand to speak, and there are no comments in the chat.
Mary Ann, you have anything? You have a resolution?
Yeah, I drafted a resolution, which is it's the special permit, so I have to warn everybody, it's long. Whereas Mercy College is an educational institution, and then we've got its location. And whereas Irvington has permitted the educational use of the Irvington premises pursuant to a resolution adopted by the Zoning Board of Appeals on November 28, 1977, which educational use has been subsequently renewed by the Village of Irvington in accordance with special permits issued by the Planning Board, most recently October 4th, 2017. And where student enrollment at the Dobbs Ferry Irvington campus of the college has decreased since the special permit was last extended. And whereas the building department has conducted a fire inspection and determined that the property is in compliance with the New York State Building and Fire Prevention Code. And whereas in September 22, Mercy applied for a 5-year extension of the special permit. The public hearing was scheduled, duly noticed, and held on October 6th, at which time all those wishing to be heard were given the opportunity. Whereas it's the renewal and extension, it's a type 2 action under SEQA, and therefore requires no further review. Now therefore be it resolved, that the building inspector be authorized and directed to issue a renewed and extended special permit to Mercy College for the following described purposes around the terms and conditions set forth below, which terms and conditions shall be incorporated in and made part of the special permit. And when there's a page of, definitions, what's the premises, what's an invitee, what's the property. Then the first substantive condition, the use of the premise shall be restricted to the students, faculty, and other employees of Mercy College and invitees, such as the term is defined in the previous paragraph. Except as may be permitted by the special permit, Mercy College shall not grant any tenancy, license, or right to use any portion of the premises. Mercy College shall limit and confine the use of the social science building and adjoining garage to offices for faculty and conference and seminar rooms. Mercy College shall limit and confine the use of Maher Hall to offices for faculty and conference and seminar rooms. Use of the faculty offices and conference and seminar rooms in the social science building in Maher Hall shall be restricted to students, faculty, and members and staff. Mercy College shall not normally permit the use of any premises by students on any day before 8 a.m. or after 11 p.m. The main entrance road may be used by students who reside in any Mercy College dormitory on the adjoining college property to return to campus after 11 p.m. Whenever the college has a planned and scheduled event that ends after 11 p.m., the main entrance road may be used. Any event at the social science building in Maher Hall shall be by 11 p.m. So the reason they talk about those two buildings is those are the ones in the Irvington part of the campus. Mercy College shall promulgate and enforce college rules prohibiting. They have to have rules that include all that stuff. Okay, 3, the grounds of and exterior of the structures on the premises premises shall be maintained in good order in a state of repair and in conformity with the prevailing standard of the adjacent residential area, and shall not be used for the outside storage of any equipment, supplies, or materials of any kind. Or at no time shall the premises be used in any manner as to cause injury, offense, annoyance, or disturbance by noise or otherwise to any of the surrounding properties or their owners and occupants. 5, the 26-mile stone marker near Hudson Road shall not be removed or moved without approval of the Irvington Planning Board. 6 has several. Okay, without a permit from the planning board, no additional roads or streets for vehicular or pedestrian access to or egress from the premises shall be constructed, nor shall any additional structures be erected on the premises, nor shall any material exterior alterations be made to the structures now on the premises. For purposes of a special permit, a material alteration shall be a change that increases the floor area in the building or that alters the exterior appearance of the structure in such a way that it no longer appears to be a residence. Next, except for emergency or service purposes, Mercy College shall prohibit entrance or exit by vehicles over the existing driveway from Hudson Road West to any part of the premises or to any adjoining college property. To prohibit such entrance, it shall cause a removable barrier across the driveway to be erected and maintained. At a minimum, the removable barrier shall consist of a chain across the driveway with a wooden horse under it and a sign of at least 22 by 15 3/4 inches, which says no entrance permitted, which shall be hung from the chain. The chain shall be permanently attached at one end. At the other end, it shall be attached to a pole, will be put into the ground and will be removable so that vehicles can enter and exit the premises. Upon application by Mercy College, the planning board may permit another form of removable barrier. Mercy College recognizes that at all times since the first special permit for use of the premises for college purposes was granted, one of the conditions considered important by the zoning board and subsequently by the planning board has been that no entrances from the premises to Hudson Road are permitted, except the existing entrances to Verrazano Hall, Maher Hall, and the Social Science Building. Unless planning for future use and development of the premises, the college shall give this factor full recognition and most serious consideration and shall plan for the location of any future building or buildings, playing fields, outdoor classrooms, etc., so that no entrance to Hudson Road shall ever be necessary, except the existing entrances to Verrazano, Maher, and the Social Science Building. Mercy College shall not permit the premises nor any part of the parking areas nor the main entrance road to be used in any way as a part of a route giving access or egress to property that's not part of the premises of the adjoining college property. Mercy College shall not permit, 7, Mercy College shall not permit any document to be recorded in land records that surrenders or adversely modifies any easement it now has from Broadway in the village of Dobbs Ferry over the property of the Institute of Mercy. Further, the college shall use reasonable efforts to make the access road over the Institute of Mercy property, which property has been purchased by Mercy College, available for use at all times by students, faculty, employees, and invitees of the college, and to cause, by means of appropriate signs, the use of such roads so as to reduce the traffic flow at the entrance opposite Langdon Avenue. 8, the driveways or parking areas that are part of or adjacent to Verrazano Hall shall, except for delivery, repair, emergency, and similar vehicles, and except for 3 parking spaces reserved for use by the handicapped, be used exclusively by the president of the college or any person who shall be acting in the president's place instead, and his or her guests or invitees, other than students, members of the faculty, and other employees of the college. Hudson Road West shall not be used as an access to the premises or any part thereof by any student, member of the faculty, other employee of the college, or any invitee. The entrances to the driveways and parking lots at all times shall have maintained on them suitable signs indicating the above restrictions. The college shall adopt and from time to time promulgate rules applicable to students, members of the faculty, and other employees and invitees to implement and advertise those restrictions. 9, Mercy College shall maintain and enforce a college rule prohibiting parking by students and invitees of bicycles, motorcycles, automobiles, and other vehicles on Hudson Road West, Clifton Place, the Hudson Road parking area on the north side of Hudson Road West, adjacent to the Yardley Country Club tennis courts, and in the case of other than faculty in the garages in Maher Hall and the Social Sciences Building, and encouraged by suitable means compliance with such rules by said persons. Proof, okay, of promulgation of such rules shall be provided annually to the building inspector. 10, Mercy College shall maintain the existing 3-foot wide asphalt concrete pedestrian path from Hudson Road West to the campus, and it shall not permit said path to be used in any manner other than by pedestrians. Mercy College shall promulgate and enforce a college rule prohibiting the use of the path by bicycles, motorcycles, cars, or other vehicles. Illumination of the path just described or any footpaths leading to the Social Science Building in Maher Hall shall consist of post-type fixtures compatible with the residential character of the adjoining area, not more than 10 feet in height, designed as near feasible to cast light only on the path so as to avoid direct or reflected light to the adjoining area. The lamps in such fixtures shall be no greater than 180 watts and be as near in color to white incandescent light as feasible. Sodium vapor illumination shall not be used. 12, Mercy College shall maintain a gate for the purposes of preventing entrance or exit over the exterior stairway on the westerly, the riverside of Maher Hall. 13, Mercy College should at all times maintain a light barrier of earth fill, trees or rock fill, or a combination of all, so as to block out completely direct rays of the headlights of automobiles exiting from the parking facilities via the main entrance road from striking property fronting on Hudson Road West between Clifton Place and Bertha Place from ground level to 20 feet higher. I'm getting there. 14, Mercy College shall not illuminate the exterior of the Social Science Building or Maher Hall except with the minimum lighting consistent with applicable safety ordinances, which shall be compatible to the extent feasible with the residential character of the adjoining area. The light shall be directed to the south and southwest. No sodium vapor illumination shall be used. The parking lot is at the westerly end of the premises. The parking lot at the westerly end of the premises shall be screened on the northerly boundary thereof by a substantial wall or fence or thick hedge with a height of 6.5 feet. 16, Mercy shall in all respects comply with the Irvington zoning code and all federal, state, and local laws. This special permit shall expire on October 31st, 2027, subject to renewal in accordance with the applicable provisions of the Irvington Village Code. 18, the college will furnish the planning board on April 15th and October 15th of each year the following information. And that's the total number of persons enrolled, the total number of persons employed, including faculty, the estimated number of persons present each time of the day, the average number of persons present during the 12 hours for the weekday from 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. In addition, on October 15th, the college must provide the planning board with a report from a traffic consultant containing traffic counts and manual turning movement counts. These have been, just so you know, these have been regularly submitted. 19. Okay, this one I know you're doing, but I left it in. A second exit lane must be created along the main entrance road for a distance of at least 125 feet from Broadway. The precise length and configuration to be determined by the village's traffic consultant is the most effective way to encourage right turns. In addition, right turns must be permitted exiting the college and changes made to the signal timing to encourage right turns. Work in connection with the right turn lane or any increase in the curb radius to be done at the intersection of main entrance and Broadway. In connection with the Dobbs Ferry dormitory project that occurs on the Irvington portion of the campus must be approved by the building inspector, engineer, and traffic consultant, but site development plan approval will not be required. Mercy will reimburse the village for its consultant fees in reviewing this work. The college must continue its shuttles. Oh, there was also a condition that I took out, the condition about the pathway from the train station to campus, because that was done. This one's in the process of being done, but it's it's not yet, so I just left it in there.
Okay.
Hopefully it'll come out in the 2027 special permit. 20, the college must continue its shuttle service to and from mass transit in the area and monitor and enforce driver compliance with traffic regulations. 21, the current policy and procedure by which Mercy's buses, except for this shuttle service, shall not drive on Langdon Avenue, Washington Avenue, or any of the other streets in Irvington except Broadway. That rule shall be maintained and continued. Mercy will reimburse the village the actual cost of monitoring the conditions of the special permit, but the reimbursement will not exceed $4,000 per year. 23, if Mercy is found guilty by the Village of Irvington Justice Court of violating the terms and conditions of this special permit on 2 occasions within a 2-year period, the planning board may review the special permit to determine whether the conditions should be modified to address the violations. And then a copy of the special permit shall be included in the orientation materials. And when there's a change in the presidency, the village has to be notified.
Thank you, Mary Ann. The attention to detail was impressive.
Well, I can't take credit for it. Most of it stems back to, I guess it was 1977. It's been tweaked a little bit here and there.
Especially the chain on the blocking the drive.
I know. There must have been pretty sticky issues before or something. I know.
It was already in there in 2014 when I started working on this.
Since I've been the attorney, it's been there.
Right.
So I never wrote
Down
that
to
one.
the eighth of an inch, but
Yes.
it was rather detailed.
Yeah.
And I'm glad the stone marker for the Albany Post Road is being protected in the resolution.
Yeah.
Any questions on the resolution?
No.
Make a motion to pass the resolution, and that's for 2022-30. I'm sorry, I ignore that. That was 2022-27.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Vote.
Approve.
Lori,
Approved.
Dan, Caesar says yes. Mike? Approve. We're all done. Thank you.
Okay.
And
Thank you very much, folks.
Thank you. Appreciate
Thanks,
it.
bye.
Take care.
Elaine,
Good night.
number 2 is 2022-29, 62 Butterwood Lane West.
Good evening. How are you all doing this evening?
Good.
All right. When last we left you here, we were asking for 105 square foot increase to lot coverage, and also acknowledging a pathway that you all noted that was undocumented back from, I don't know, maybe early 80s or so on the left part of the plan. Let me share my screen here so we're all looking at the same thing. We went to the zoning board as requested, got in there in the nick of time, and when we were there, here, let me see if anybody can see my screen. Okay. So in the ask to the zoning board, their acknowledgement was that the lot was well over coverage, which was agreed. We were, acknowledging that we were asking for 105 square foot as a variance to legalize the basement, etc. And what should be reflected in their minutes, though we haven't seen a letter yet by the owner, was that we would provide a trade-off where the 105 would be granted if we could take it out of another portion of the site, which on the left-hand portion of the plan, the flag walkway was the area that was noted that we would remove from. So we'll, with the owner, we'll reduce that in terms of its coverage, or less impervious surface to balance, if not add square footage back to the property that's not covered. That's the goal there. Again, we haven't seen the letter quite yet, but I'm hoping that's reflected in their minutes. I'm going to check in with them tomorrow as well. I think what else was on the letter from Holland Engineering, we can address those points in terms of the drainage. We're going to try to tie that into the existing footing drains. When we're in there, we'll add a note for that. And trees although line weights are a little light here, the trees were noted on the plan at the diameter of trunk that was noted. So we're trying to accommodate all that as well.
Okay, one issue that we had that was the inappropriate site plan. And Ed, do we have one now?
We're good.
And Doug, the stairwell, which was the increase in coverage, what percentage does that work out? So like less than 1%?
I think I have 4.5%. That's inaccurate.
It's a
4.5.
20,000 square foot lot, and it's a 100 square foot increase. So it's like less than,
0.5%.
I think it's a 0.5%. We can do the math.
But it's 4%, 4.5% greater than existing.
We had no
Thank you for
problem with
walking
that
Just
before,
take it
so
back
Okay.
down.
I don't see
Yeah.
us having a problem with that now. At least I don't. Let me poll the board. Laurie,
No questions?
Dan,
No questions, no problems.
Mike?
I have no problem.
No. Sarah, any public?
Nobody's raising their hand to speak, and there are no comments in the chat.
Okay, good luck with the planning board. We got a resolution ready to approve this. Mary Ann, you have a resolution?
Yeah.
Yep. Whereas in September 2022, 62 BWL LLC applied for site development plan approval to construct stairs from the yard to the basement of the house at 62 Butterwood Lane West. And whereas the house already exceeds coverage, so a variance from the zoning board of appeals is required. And whereas Han Engineering reviewed the plans and in a memorandum dated September 6th, made a number of comments, most of which were addressed in a subsequent submission. And whereas the planning board held a public hearing on the application on September 7th and October 6th, 2022. And whereas it's type 2 action under SEQA and therefore requires no environmental review. Now therefore be it resolved that the planning board grants the application for site development plan approval of the improvements reflected in the drawings entitled Cordero Rosenfield Residence prepared by Hunt Architecture DPC, and the sheets were eliminated. Subject to 1, obtaining a variance from the ZBA for coverage, and 2, complying with the items in Han's October 3rd, 2022 memo.
Thank you, Mary Ann. Any question on the resolution, anybody? I make a motion to approve this resolution. We have a second? Second. We have a vote?
Approved.
Approved.
Approved?
Aye.
Was Mike? Approved. Approved. Any opposed? No. Okay, it's all done. Thank you very much. Thank you for getting the site plan shaped up, and now you have to deal with the zoning board on a 0.5%. Okay.
And 1 step at a time. All right. Thank you guys for the time tonight. Take care.
Two. And we're going to number 3, which is 2022-28. That's 3 Beechwood Road.
Hello. Hi, good evening. Stephen Bassini. Hi, good evening. Stephen Bassini representing the applicant for 3 Beechwood. Thank you for your time. I'm going to start by sharing the site plan right away. So at the last meeting, there were some questions. Well, there was a list of comments which from Han Engineering and some from the landscape consultant that I had addressed. In addition to that, there were questions about the stairs and how that worked with the railing. We've alleviated that issue by eliminating the stairs and sloping down the grade from the corner of the house here at 178, which is what we leveled which we were proposing to level the front yard at, and sloping it down to the side yard, which eliminates the need for any stairs. So the wall is now just along this side of the property and does not return back to the house. So that took care of a lot of those concerns. There was also a concern about landscaping and buffering along the wall. As you can see, we had the same boxwoods along the top here that we had originally proposed and were approved for the walkway in this area. Along here, once they are fully matured and spread, they would be touching branches, so we have them spread out so they can be healthy. And then also along there, there was a proposal or a request to put some sort of buffering cascading plant down that. So what we propose to do is put a blue carpet phlox, it's called, which basically is about 3 to 6 inches in height, 12 to 8 inches in spread. We have 20 plants planted along that and a planting bed all along here. You can see it outlined, which will then drape over the wall. And in the elevation,
Hold on, I didn't quite see where you're planting the.
sorry,
the drape.
there's a bed here, as you can see as I follow my cursor
I
along.
didn't see your cursor.
Sorry about that. Yeah, there's a whole planting bed there. So ultimately, the goal would be to have this right here, this other outline as I follow it along here, to be draping, cascading down over the wall. It's specifically designed, not designed, it's specifically chosen for that characteristic. And I had not seen any comments from the landscape consultant. I'm assuming that means it was reviewed and approved. There were 5 comments from Han Engineering, most of which are just comments, just making corrections to a note or two on the plan. But I did want to point out one comment. There was a question about how this elevation here is 176 proposed, and the top of the wall is 178.2. That is because, as I mentioned, we are sloping this down, but we are maintaining the height, and you'll see here in the elevation. That dashed line is the proposed grade behind the wall. We were maintaining the height here so we can have one continuous capstone along the top of the wall. But so at this point where we are at 176, the wall is 2 feet higher, just so we can make it this way instead of stepping it down every block. So that was the one item. I would not be changing that elevation, but I would address all of other Han's concerns. They were, I think, minor. And we are now further under the coverage. I know there was a concern about that last time about the math, but we had a 54 square foot wall with the stairs. We now have a 45.5 square foot wall, and I checked my math and we're still under the required coverage. I'm hoping those were, I hope I addressed everything.
The dogwood was turned to the plans. Could you show that?
Sorry, yes, the dogwood is replaced over here to this side of the property. There really are no trees or plantings. They start back here along by the garage. So in this area here, it's sort of barren. And with the driveway work that was done here, this was regraded. And so that the dogwood tree would fit nicely there. So it's back on the front of the property.
Doug, there were some issues with the numbers on coverage, everything squared away?
Yeah, everything was squared away. Our comments are minimal, minor.
Okay, the other comment was the clump of trees on your neighbor's property to the south. And you orally said that the end of the wall is well removed from that. Is that what that is?
It's not, yeah, it's not on the neighbor's property. It was in the right of way, and they're shown right here. So yeah, you see the end of the wall is right here, and this is the property line, and then from here to here is the right of way between the road, and this is where that clump of trees, the manhole is, and then the other utility manhole in the street over here. So we are far enough away from that. And in fact, as it gets to here, this wall dies into grade at this point. So there's very little work being done here. The limited disturbance is at that point right there. And any of the roots here would really fall short of that. The canopy would.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Any questions from the board, Lori?
No questions.
Dan?
No questions.
Mike?
I actually have 2 questions. So
Yes.
does the elimination of the stairs present any other issues for you? Either safety or runoff?
No, because right now we're overall as a net, we're still improving the runoff because as you see that right now, the grades here slope down and all this water is running off into the neighbor's property. So all of from here, 178 all the way around to here. This water is now perking at a slower rate because it's going right into the soil, and then it would weep slowly through the joints in this wall. So we're improving all of this area from 178 here, as it gets 176 and 174, all of this area in here, we're improving the runoff. And this area over here is a greater than 2-on-1 slope, or I should say less than a 2-on-1 slope. And any runoff here would be going to the same exact location it is now. We're not concentrating it. Like I said, we're alleviating this whole portion here. So it does not concern any negative impacts. I mean, it doesn't create any negative impacts. It improves it.
I have no other questions.
You said you had 2 questions.
I know, but I combined my,
Oh, okay. Those are both. All right.
both my questions.
Kevin,
Nothing for me.
so you're creating a sleigh riding run, okay.
It could work that way, sure.
Anything from the public, Sarah?
Nobody's raising their hand to speak, and there are no comments in the chat.
Mary Ann, do we have a resolution?
Yeah, in September 2022, Randy Blycheville Sirota applied for site development plan approval to construct a retaining wall on her property at 3 Beechwood Road. Han Engineering reviewed the plans and in a memorandum dated September 6th, made a number of comments, most of which were addressed in a subsequent submission. Suzanne Nolan, the village's landscape consultant, reviewed the plans and made 2 comments, which were addressed to her satisfaction in a subsequent submission. Planning board held a public hearing on the application on September 7th and October 6th. The action is type 2 action under SEQA and therefore requires no environmental review. Now therefore be it resolved that the planning board grants the application for site development plan approval for the improvements reflected in the drawings entitled Michael Sirota and Randy Blycheville Sirota prepared by SJP Architecture and Design. Sheets are listed. Subject to complying with the items in Han's October 3rd, 2022 memorandum.
Thank you, Mary Ann. Any questions on the resolution? No
Not
questions.
here.
Have a vote. I make a motion to approve this resolution. Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a vote?
Approved.
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 Aye.
Approved. Okay. You're all set. We're done with this, and it's gonna look a lot better than the way that soil looks now when you come up Osceola.
Yes, we hope so.
Thank you.
Thank you. I appreciate your time. Thanks. Have a good night.
All right, the next item on the list is number 4, 2022-23, 77 South Buckout Street. Kevin Thurman will be replaced by Mike Bafuco for this item because it's adjacent to, the rear of the house is adjacent to Kevin's house.
If you're here to represent the application, if you can please hit the raise hand button.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman and members of the board. My name is John Anastasiou, and I'm the architect on behalf of Donna and Kevin Gallagher at 77 South Buckout Street. We came back for a follow-up meeting here. Based on the feedback that we received at the last meeting, we sat back down with the client and decided to eliminate the protruding porch, and we instead opted to recess a platform that is designed within the existing footprint of the existing enclosed sunroom. I'll share my screen so that you can kind of see the change. So this is the existing sunroom here, and we're rebuilding it in the same footprint, and we're also extending the house to meet the full width at the 2 corners. Before, we had a porch that extended beyond this line, which in turn caused the steps to extend beyond the porch. And we were redoing the existing retaining walls that were here. This is a scaled back version of that plan where the platform is recessed, and the addition is now essentially covering the footprint of the existing sunroom. And we're building out the corners to meet the full width of the house. I think that was the primary concern that the planning board expressed at the last meeting. So we decided to alter the design to take away that concern. I am in receipt of Han Engineering's letter. There were no comments except an acknowledgement that we are requesting a variance for coverage and a variance for being in the setbacks.
Yes. Okay, it looks like, if I recall my comments, I was referring to that porch that has been removed as somewhat of a sore thumb sticking out. And that has been alleviated, so that is appreciated. Anything else, Doug? You got everything covered? Ed?
We're all done.
Any questions?
No question.
Lori?
No questions.
I have none, no further.
No questions.
No questions.
Sarah, anybody in the public?
Nobody's raising their hand to speak, and there are no comments in the chat.
Okay, we're ready for a resolution. And Mary Ann, you have a resolution?
In July 2022, Kevin and Donna Gallagher applied for site development plan approval to construct a new porch, steps, and walkway at the front of their house at 77 South Buckout Street, which is located in the View Preservation District, and was part of the proposed construction lies in the Buckout Street right-of-way, and the applicants have submitted a writing from the superintendent to the Village Department of Public Works that a street opening permit will be issued for the construction, and whereas the proposed coverage of the construction exceeds what's permitted in the 1F5 zoning district and intrudes into the front and side yard setbacks, therefore requiring variances from the Zoning Board of Appeals. And was the planning board expressed concern about the covered front porch extending beyond the front of the house, and the applicants in the subsequent submission eliminated the front porch. And was Han Engineering reviewed the plans and in memoranda dated July 5th and September 6th, identified a number of issues, all of which were addressed in subsequent submissions. Suzanne Nolan, the village's landscape art consultant, reviewed the plans and in a memorandum dated July 5th, made 2 recommendations which were addressed in a subsequent submission. Planning board held a public hearing on the application on July 6th, September 7th, and October 6th. And whereas the proposed construction has no impact on views of the Hudson River, and whereas it's type 2 action under SECRA, now therefore be it resolved that the planning board grants the application for site development plan approval for the improvements reflected in the drawing entitled Gallagher Residence, prepared by J. Anastasio, architect, subject to receiving variances from the ZBA for coverage, front yard, and side yard setbacks.
Thank you, Mary Ann. Again, thank you for addressing our major concern with that front porch. Any questions with the resolution?
No questions.
I make a motion to approve the resolution. Do we have a second?
Second.
Vote?
Approved.
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 Aye.
Approved. Michael? Okay, you're all set. You need to go to the ZBA and see how they look at this, okay?
All right. Thank you very much for your time. Have a great evening. Thank you.
I'll give it to Kevin. Okay. What's that? Number five, 2022-21, Field Terrace. Sarah, is anybody out there?
Yes, they're being promoted now. Sorry.
Hello, good evening. I think our team is all on. Yeah, there's Greg. Hello, everyone, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. My name is Casey Brenner with the law firm Zarin and Steinmetz. Unfortunately, David could not be here tonight, but you will recall that we represent the Saharas in connection with their application for site development plan approval for their proposed construction of a single-family home on their property on Field Terrace Avenue. With me tonight are the project architects from the Up Studio, John DiPaolo, and Greg Merritt from Bayview Landscape Architects, as well as the project engineer, Alan Pilch. I think we'll be fairly brief tonight. You'll see our most recent submission reflects updated landscaping plans, as well as updated renderings that were prepared by the Up Studio. And those renderings depict the view of the proposed home from the street and from the top of the driveway. We think these, as JD will walk you through, we think these provide an accurate visual of what the home will look like, along with the proposed landscaping, which is something your board raised and requested during last month's planning board meeting. So tonight we're simply hoping to close the loop on some of these issues, as well as answer any other questions the board might have in the meantime. And just as a brief update, since we were last here last month, our team has continued furthering our discussions with the neighboring property owners, the Hallecks, and their consultants regarding stormwater management and the sewer easement area on the Halleck property. With regard to stormwater, I believe we're on the same page with the Hallecks and their consultants. There was an on-site meeting in September that Alan Pilch attended in terms of the measures we're taking to address some of those pre-existing drainage conditions we've discussed with the board. Most of what has been confirmed and agreed upon by all parties has already been shown on our plans, but Alan will be making some minor updates that we plan to submit, and we've let the Hallecks know that they'll have a chance to review those plans before we make our next submission. With regard to the sewer easement area, a tree survey has been conducted. We just recently received the completed survey back from the surveyor. So we're reviewing that, and we will be providing an updated plan showing our proposed sewer alignment. And the goal there, of course, will be intended to minimize impacts to trees, and will indicate any proposed trees to be removed or replaced and replanted elsewhere. And the Hallecks are aware we plan to send and discuss that with them prior to our next submission, which we hope our next submission for the November meeting will be our final submission, hopefully. And we also received the latest comment memo from the board's consultants. The prior Han engineering comments will be satisfied in our upcoming submission. And it seems we've largely satisfied nearly all of Suzanne Nolan's comments regarding landscaping. Now that the tree survey is completed, we can of course provide info on those trees as well. With that, I will turn it over to the Up Studio to share their renderings.
Before you do that, you said you did a tree survey for the sewer easement. You did not indicate whether the sewer easement was moved to avoid some specimen trees.
That's what we're looking into now that we have the location of those trees.
Okay, so you're still looking at where you might put the sewer easement based on the tree survey?
I think, and Alan, feel free to jump in on this. I think if, to the extent it's moved, it will be a realignment. It won't be an entirely new easement area.
Spear or an arrow, alignment, move, whatever you want to call it, but the way it's shown now, from what I understand, there's some major specimen trees that would have to come down. And the realignment, as you say, hopefully will save those specimen trees.
That is our
I'll
goal.
just pipe in. We are looking at, I'll say, a modified horizontal alignment of that sanitary sewer to avoid and absolutely minimize impacts to trees. There are some trees that are, but what we did is we surveyed a 50-foot swath, 15 feet on either side of that easement. So that's what we had identified, the trees within that. And we're working now to provide a new alignment for that sanitary sewer, which would preserve the trees, you know, within the easement and just outside that easement too, through that 50-foot swath.
Yeah, you got to be careful, not only trees in it, but the roots of neighboring trees. Yeah.
Yes, we're well aware of that.
Okay. And a housekeeping note, Casey, on the plans, you have the replacement trees, aside from the sewer trees, you have replacement trees on the plan, but Suzanne said you should note the sizes of those replacement trees.
Correct. I think Bayview will be on top of that for the next submission.
And you mentioned Doug's letter. Keep in mind that Doug's letter this time is almost a duplicate of the last letter from last meeting.
Right.
So the same questions were asked twice is my point. Okay.
Right. And I think we mentioned this in our cover letter. We didn't resubmit all new revised engineering plans at that time for the latest deadline because we were still potentially working out some things with the drainage and stormwater management issues. I don't think the stormwater facilities are changing all that much from the last submission, but we didn't want to have to reproduce everything unnecessarily when we knew there would be a second submission coming.
Okay, and Casey, I should mention, and I should have mentioned earlier, we got a lengthy letter from Claire Halleck. She mentioned the meeting you referenced to, and I'm glad that you're working together on that to look at these issues of drainage. I pointed this out last meeting in terms of the Halleck's concern of drainage. If this project didn't exist, the drainage that they're suffering from would still go on unabated. So in essence, what you're doing, because of the drainage collection at the house, which the new construction is going to create, that's being captured. And outside of the envelope of the house, the other drainage that is not related to the construction is being addressed with the new catch basins that you're still working on with the Halleck. So this project has to be an improvement over doing nothing. Just wanted to point that out. Okay, go ahead. You had more presentation.
Thank
you. Yes. Yeah. I'll jump in here. JD from the Up Studio. Thank you, Casey. I'll go ahead and share my screen. I'd just like to kind of present to the board essentially the two updated views that were requested from the board. So as Casey had mentioned, the image on the left there is a view from the top of the driveway. This proposed landscaping in this image is correlates back to the proposed landscape plan. The image itself was essentially stitched over a photo from the vantage point. The one to the right is a view essentially kind of center of the property from the street, again kind of stitched into an existing photo, and you can see kind of like right here you start seeing some of the windows of the home, portions of the facade, but essentially from the street, you know, and at this vantage point, the home is all but hidden.
Okay, thank you. It looks better than the rendering we had that didn't exist in reality. Thank you very much. That's appreciated.
You're welcome.
Casey, any other presentation?
Greg, do you want to quickly walk through just briefly the latest landscaping updates from the prior submission?
Well, I'll just maybe summarize. We were in receipt of the, I'm sorry, Greg Moret, Bayview Landscape Architecture. We're in receipt of the letter October 3rd from Suzanne Nolan. The vast majority of the letter was just detailing all the items that were revised to answer some of the questions she had. The 2 action items, as the chairman mentioned, one was plant sizes required in the plant list. I apologize for the confusion on that. There is one page where the plants list is abbreviated due to size of the property, and which we basically shouldn't have done, so it caused some confusion. That plant list is on the following page in its entirety with the plant sizes, so it is in the set, but we will clarify that. Apologies. And the second item was the identification and replanting plan based on the sewer easement through the Halleck property, which we will of course participate in and make sure remediation, ground cover, reestablishment is a priority for that sewer easement area. Happy to answer any questions you may have.
When you were out doing the site visit, I think I mentioned it last time, the Castellanos, the driveway to the south, they put in curbing so that water would not flow down their driveway from the street, which was probably a good part of the drainage that's running down the hill to the Hallecks. Did you see any, I don't know if it was raining when you went out there, did you see any evidence that it made a difference of what they did to their driveways?
I'm sorry, I couldn't speak to that.
Alan, can you speak to that? Was that?
Well, they actually installed like stone curbing that's probably, I'll say, 3 inches high. It's about that high. So it should actually deflect a lot of the water that was, I'll say, that had drained into their driveway and came down through a couple of catch basins other locations to flow onto the Halleck's property. But I have not physically observed that happening, but I can imagine with a 3-inch curb, that would take I'll say, remove or deflect a substantial portion of the rainfall, because it's a pretty tall curb along their driveway.
I was up there during a rainstorm and it does, it deflects it further down and there's a blacktop curbing that brings it down even further.
Correct. That's what I anticipate happening, but I haven't observed it in a precipitation event.
Thank you. Do we have any questions from the board? Lori?
No questions.
I have no questions. No questions?
Nothing. Sarah, is there any, I think the Hallecks said they were away, but we'll ask if there's any comment from the public.
Nobody's raising their hand to speak, and there are no comments in the chat.
Caesar, if I can interject with one quick question or request before we log off. So in light of where we are at this time, our team was hoping if the planning board would consider allowing us or possibly referring us to begin discussions with the Architectural Review Board at this time. I believe the Architectural Review Board meets later this month as well as November. We understand we'll need the ARB to approve our application before a building permit can be issued. And it's our understanding the normal process in the village is typically that applicants have to wait until they have planning board and zoning board and any other approvals in hand, at least for any non-historic related applications, that applicants can't go to the ARB until all planning board approvals are issued. However, we are hoping to begin this process, especially before the holidays at the end of the year, even if it's just on an informal or preliminary basis. Our architectural team and our clients are very excited about the design of the proposed home, and they've clearly put a lot of time and thought into this. So the sooner we can begin getting the ARB's feedback, the better. We hope they'll be just as excited as we are about it, but we would love to get their feedback as early on as possible, even if it precedes a formal building permit application. Do you,
Yeah, I hate to break a precedent and create a new precedent, the slippery slope for future applications. So I don't think so. Mary Ann?
Well, I'd run that past Dad, since Dad usually handles the planning board stuff.
I'm sorry, but it would be too much of a precedent, in my opinion, to deviate from the normal procedure, because then the next guy will say, well, you did it there. And maybe a specified, a narrow situation, but every narrow situation gets broadened the next time. And we, as you know, as a lawyer, the 101 in law school is a slippery slope. So I'm not referring to the topography on the site.
Caesar, let's see where they are next month.
Yes. Hopefully, if you get the only issue is the trees seem to be getting themselves straightened out, no pun intended. The only issue is the sewer easement. I can envision an approval next month if you get everything right.
okay, thank you. And I did note that it looks
I
like,
didn't guarantee that. That's pending what we see.
of course. No, thank you. I appreciate you considering our request. And I think the November planning board meeting would be the 2nd, and it looks like the ARB's deadline would be November 7th for their November meeting. So hopefully we can get there.
Well, you got your work cut out for you on the sewer easement, finessing the rest of the trees. We'll see how that goes. Okay?
Thank you very
Thank you.
much.
Your team
Thank you.
for showing up. I guess
Thank
it's
you all.
great to be,
Thank you
otherwise
very
you
much.
don't know where you're all from, but it's certainly easier to do this place. So
It sure is. We
Thank you
appreciate
very
it.
much.
Have a great night.
We'll see you next time.
Thank you.
Okay, we're moving along to number 6, 2022-30. That's 30-40 South Broadway. Previously known, when it was there, was the fee property.
Caesar, I think.
Are you set there, young man?
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the board, village council, staff. Lino Sharetta, partner with the law firm Blakely Platt and Schmidt, on behalf of the applicant this evening, SCF APEG Holdings LLC. So tonight, Chairman, members of the board, we are bringing back to your project that this board had approved back in 2016. I believe you, Caesar, were part of that planning board when this project was approved, and a member also being called the fee property way back when. So just by way of background for the folks of the planning board who are there now, this was a project that was approved by the board for and this is again at 30 and 40 South Broadway, for a 27 unit, which consisted of 21 market rate and 6 affordable units. And that was the approval that was given back by this board in November of 2016. Now, before I go further, I know the folks on my team are on the Zoom this evening. I just want to introduce them, Mr. Chairman. We have Larry and Greg Linksman, Angela Dabrowski, who's via telephone. Also, counsel for SCF, Prasanna Mehodava, is on the Zoom as well. And then our engineering firm, which is the same engineering firm that had obtained the approvals on this, JMC, we have Anthony Guccione and David Lombardi. And also the architect on this project will also be the same, Glenn Cervini. So the parties are pretty much the same. So the reason why we're back to you is we're looking to renew those approvals. Those approvals have since expired. And what we're looking to do, Mr. Chairman, members of the board, is really to renew those and, build exactly what was approved for. Now, just to give you a little background, my client SCF acquired this property from the prior owner. And just to give you some overview, when this project was approved by the prior developer, contractor, and owner, they had received some building permits for the project. The project was started, and for whatever reasons, and I'm sure there are many, was never completed. And basically, it's been sitting there now for about a couple of years, maybe more, with one structure, a portion of one built. And again, it's been sitting there for a couple of years now. So that being said, my client acquired that property recently. I want to say probably October 2021, early 2022 is when they acquired it. And because those approvals have expired, Mr. Chairman, what we'd like to do, we'd like to renew those so that SCF is not going to be developing, and they like to be able to sell to a developer that will take this project and get it completed. What happened when SCF acquired this, they tried to sell it to a developer, but no developer would want to take it unless the approvals were renewed. They didn't want to take on that expense and burden, which is why we are here to do that, so that we can get this, to borrow a golf analogy, teed up and ready to have this property sold to a developer who will build what was contemplated back in 2016. We have, prior to coming here this evening, Mr. Chairman and members of the board, we did meet informally with the village attorney, with the building inspector, with the village administrator, just to go over a couple of things, introduce the team, which is the same team, if you will, from way back when. And, we want to just let the village know that we want to work with you all to get this project renewed and back on track. And, including, I know the village was really wanting these 6 affordable units, which SCF is committed to do. As a matter of fact, one of the things, we were discussing is, start on the affordable units in terms of construction and then continue to finish what's currently under construction now, meaning there was the entire structure is one built and then a portion of another. So that's what we like to do. And I know we're going to have to, work with the village, in between board meetings, Mr. Chairman, to do that. So that's pretty much where we are. What I would like to do for the benefit of the new members, when I say new, that were not there in 2016, I just want to give have the site plan put on the screen and let Anthony Guccione from JMC just give a quick overview, if that's okay, Mr. Chairman.
Sure, that's a good idea.
Great. So, Anthony,
By the way,
if you could.
I want to add the site plan. When I looked at what was submitted, it was solely the site plan.
Right.
And you may not have been involved in the review process the last time, but one of the things of major concern is what it looks like in elevation.
Yep.
And there were no elevations in what was submitted. We need to know. And we spent a great deal of time on how it looks from the front and how it looks from the road, how it looks from the aqueduct. And eventually the architects designed features that were attractive to off-site observation from the aqueduct and the roads in the area, the Station Road and Broadway. And I was not able to determine that because there were none. It was site plan, as you said, so that was missing.
And yes, and you are correct, Caesar. We will update our submission for next month's meeting to include those. The good news is the architect that actually prepared those plans that you went through is the same one. So we'll be presenting those and submitting those elevations with the next submission. But we wanted to get in this evening just so we can introduce the team and just get the process started. So that we can get this back on track. So. We did, just before Anthony starts, I just want to note that we did receive, for the record, we did receive Doug Hahn's memo of September 30th. We also received Ann Atchinson's memo. I want to thank the village for getting me that, of September 22nd. So, we understand, about the erosion. I mean, listen, the site has been sitting there. The project was started, it stopped. So we understand that we're going to have to, obviously, with respect to the erosion, address it. And, when we start construction, obviously we'll address the sediment control and obviously it's going to improve, obviously, once we get started. So Without further ado, I'd like to now turn this over to Anthony and just to go over the site plan, Anthony.
Good evening. Everybody can hear me and see the rendering?
Yes.
Yes. All right, good evening. My name is Anthony Guccione. As Lino said, I'm with JMC, and I'd just like to briefly take you through the site plan for the project. The property is located at 30 and 40 South Broadway. It's located between South Broadway, which is at the bottom of the sheet, just to orient you. The top of the sheet is the Old Croton Aqueduct. To the right is Irvington Estates, and to the left and the south is Station Road. The site's about 5.8 acres in size, and it's outlined in this red line. You can see it at the perimeter of the site. The site has been subdivided into 29 lots, one for each of the units, one for the internal driveway, and then one for the remaining open space on the site. The site's zoned MF, multifamily residence zoning district, where this use is permitted. The project is proposed, as Lino said, to be 27 attached single-family townhome dwellings in 12 buildings. You can see them here on the site plan. Those buildings would range from 2 to 4 units per building. Of the units, 21 are proposed to be market rate and 6 are proposed to be fair and affordable housing units. Units 22, 24, 22, 23, and 24 and 25 right here. Can you see my hand over this unit?
Yes.
Okay, those are proposed to be 4 of the affordable units. They would be 2 units per floor for a total of 4 in this building. The other 2 affordable units are proposed to be over here in the former McCon Stern residence. That's units 26 and 27. And that building would be adaptively reused as a residence to house affordable units. The market rate units would be about 2,800 square feet in size. The affordable units about 12 to 1,400 square feet in size. And started to explain that a portion of the site has been constructed. These units here, 3 and 4, have been started. There's a foundation, there's framing and a roof on this building here. And then this buildings 5 and 6 just have a foundation in the ground, and that's as far as it's gone. The site's been brought to grade, the driveway's been graded out, most of the curbs are installed, the majority of the utilities are installed. The site was proposed to use the same driveway that served the previous use coming off of South Broadway. That would be the access here. A 2-way driveway off of South Broadway, then it splits into a 1-way counterclockwise circulation loop here in this direction, and then back out to the 2-way driveway back out to South Broadway. The houses are located, the units are located along the loop driveway. The houses have been oriented with the smaller faces facing South Broadway, kind of reduces the perceived mass of the buildings from outside the site. The driveway to the McCon Stern house would be the existing driveway that's there now, which is to be slightly modified to provide some parking, but the existing driveway would be used again. Substantial amount of green space has been maintained. You can see the perimeter of the site will maintain a majority of the trees that are there existing, and they'll be heavily supplemented with additional landscape plantings. A concrete sidewalk as part of the project has been installed here along Station Road, basically from South Broadway back to the Old Croton Aqueduct where the underpass is. That's in place. And finally, in terms of parking is required to be 2 spaces per unit. It's a total of 54 required spaces. There are 105 spaces provided in the design, 44 in garages, and then another 61 open spaces with 9 visitor spaces along the loop driveway, 6 here, 7, 8, 9, and then the rest of the open spaces are in driveways in front of the garages. And that's kind of an overview of the site plan. Be happy to answer any questions you might have.
Yeah, and I'd just like to know for the board, like I said earlier, there are no changes at all contemplated with this. We were simply seeking just to renew the exact same plans and site plan that was approved back in 2016. And because of that, I know the secret was done back then. There's been no material changes at all to this. Everything's the same. The scope of work is the same plan. So, we don't believe that would be affected. But again, we are seeking a renewal because it's just they did expire. So, but whatever you saw back in 2016 is exactly what we are presenting now, members of the board, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, regarding the EAF, we'd like to see a long EAF resubmitted. Probably no changes. But like you said, this project doesn't change, but the area around it might change. There might be village conditions that might change. All right, granted, it's 5 years, probably doesn't change that much, but we'd like to take a look at it. So if you can resubmit the long EAF, probably no changes, but let's do that for the sake of the public, so you can see that we're not trying to hide anything.
Yeah, the only changes to the EAF is the project had evolved to some extent as from input from the boards and the approvals. So that would be the only changes from the onset to where we ended up. So
we just like to go through it.
Understood.
And you got Doug Hahn's letter about updates. We'd like to see an interim plan for drainage. As you said, you got a couple of buildings up, and I'm sure there's going to be more buildings. Presumably, we're going to request in any resolution down the road that the affordables be built before the rest of the units get built. And the roof of those buildings are going to produce water. And where is that drainage going in the interim? I mean, there is a stormwater disposal proposed on the south end of the property between these two south end structures. If I remember, that's where
right here.
Yeah. Now,
And then there's one here too.
I believe that the roof of the two buildings or three buildings are they connected to that, and where does that drainage go? We'd like to see an interim drainage plan as to where, as you complete a building, where's the roof drainage going?
Yeah, okay. There was an erosion and sediment control plan. There were some temporary basins in place, but sure, we can update that.
That temporary basin, Caesar, is in the
right here.
The bank. It's right there. Yeah.
Okay, so we'd like to see that
So
plan.
it may need to be changed with some of the other conversations we're having as well.
Yeah. And obviously you touched on the erosion control. We need to see that. The way that the driveway drains down to Broadway could be an issue. It's unattended for 2 or 3 years, and there's gullies in that driveway. And we'd rather not see a delta in Broadway of silt. What has been built to date? Is it what has been built? Is that according to the original approvals? The buildings probably are. What have you done with the trees? Did you cut more trees than you were supposed to, or are you on schedule for the correct cutting of trees? And do we need an update on the plantings of trees? It's just updating what you've done,
right?
And did it comply, and where are we going?
Right.
We just like to see that. And the drainage is important because obviously it's on the top of a hill, and a great engineering observation is water flows downhill. So we'd like to see what you're doing with that drainage in an appropriate fashion, so you don't create mudslides coming down the hill. And you do know, when we eventually get to a resolution, it'll include that you build, as you said, the affordables first.
Yeah, to that point, Caesar, just with respect to the affordables, but I would assume that we could also continue with the structures that had already, that had begun construction, like the structures that Anthony had referred to earlier in his presentation, because they're there. So we'd like to be able to obviously do the affordables and also continue on the ones that have already been started.
When you say continue, the internal work, electrical, plumbing.
Or just, because that foundation is there right now. Yep, on that one.
Is there, can I make a suggestion? Why don't you provide for next month, Lino?
Yep.
What you're proposing, so we can work with it.
That'd be great.
What you think, what you want, and if there's changes to be made, at least we have something to work with.
Great. Thank you, Ed.
Okay. I think, again, that erosion control is important and the drainage is important because it impacts Broadway and Barney Brook. You're right next to two sensitive areas. And we have had a big storm where Barney Brook flooded. There's quite extensive damage downstream of Barney Brook.
In the last 6 years.
Yeah.
Since this was approved, that's why.
Yeah. And that's why we need to look at the changes in the village that may be impacted by this project. Again, you're right, the project didn't change, but situations in the village may have changed, which may change something there. I don't think in 5 years things change that drastically, but we'd like to take a look at it and be sure. Lori?
I just want to make sure I'm clear in what you're saying. You are intending to get approval so that you can then sell this to a developer or a builder who will actually build these units. Is that a yes or a no?
That's correct.
Okay. Okay. So here, first of all, this is a complete eyesore and an embarrassment to the village that it's been left in this condition for as long as it has. That could be, and maybe not a planning board issue that needs to be fixed. Maybe it's something with the village trustees, but there should be building term limits. Nothing should be left like this for this amount of time. That's number one. So if you were to get these approvals, I would want to see an incentive for these to actually get built, or a consequence for them not getting built. Now, I'm not sure if we have that jurisdiction. Mary Ann can talk to that after, can speak to that after, but it's an embarrassment to the village as far as I'm concerned as a resident. And then I'd love a little clarification on the 6 affordable units. What is that price based on? You might already have a specific approval for that. I'm unsure.
And understood, and like I said, understand, Laura, that this wasn't, the prior developer. I mean, there were issues there. I mean, this, SCF is new to this project, and the reason why we are here and the reason why this team is here is to not make it an eyesore for the village anymore. So we understand it. We hear you loud and
But
clear.
you're looking to sell it to somebody else, and then they might then in turn come back to the planning board for more changes and more of a delay. So unless there's some kind of incentive or consequence for actually not getting anything built, I don't care what happened already. I want to know how we're going to fix it going forward.
And just so you're aware, there was a developer and they wanted to do exactly what was approved, but because the approval expired, they wanted to make sure that the owner, i.e. SCF, took that responsibility and not the developer. But that developer wanted to do exactly what was approved back in 2016 with the exact same plan, exact same architecturals. And again, I can't speak to what happened in the past and why it sat there, but what I can say is there was an interest, a big interest, to build this project in accordance to the way it was approved.
And can you address the affordable units? What it's based on?
The affordable,
Mary Ann, we have village code as to what an affordable is.
Yeah, it's got, the units have to comply with affordable under the village code. I think, I don't know whether these are sale or rental. If they're rentals, they have to be at 60% of the area median income. If they're for sale, 80% of area median income to qualify as affordable housing. If that's what you were getting at, Lori.
Yes, yeah. My understanding is most of the units were for sale. Is that not the case?
Yes. My recollection being from the past, that these were all townhouses for sale.
Yes.
Is that correct?
Well, yeah, they were working on that, but when you're, what do you call it? When you're approving something, you can't take into account, the form of ownership. So we never really got into that, but it is relevant when, to meet the definition of affordable, under the village code.
and just so the board is clear, and just because again, my client was not, just so you understand the color of this here. So, our SCF was the underlying lender, okay, and there was the lender to the prior developer who had this project. Okay, that developer defaulted, okay, and then my client acquired this property as a result of that. Okay, so there were a host of things that were wrong in terms of certain vendors that were not paid, outstanding invoices. So that's why there was this property sat there. There was a bankruptcy. So, and we as in terms of SCF were under contract with a major developer And that developer backed out because these approvals expired. So just to give you an idea of what, we've been dealing with over the past couple of years on this. So, and that's why we're here today. So that developer that backed out really wanted to see these approvals renewed so that they can, go forward, pick up and begin to construct this project.
All right, Lauren?
I just have to say, there's no guarantee that if the developer you're talking about buys this property, that they will stick to this plan. They could be back here. It could happen. So as much as you say that, there's no guarantee.
Anybody, look, any buyer, we would obviously, that's, if they have the approvals to build this development, that's what they can build if they have the approvals for it. You can't, obviously, you're gonna have developers, if they want to change things, they're gonna have to come back before your board and request those changes if they want to do that. So, we can't stop that, but I will tell you that the developers that have looked at this want to build it as it was approved. But again, you're right. You can't prevent the developer from coming back if they want to change it, but they got to come back before your board and they have to get approvals and it has to be looked at, plans designed. But again, what we're looking to do simply is just to get these approvals reapproved and renewed so that we can tee it off and get it to a developer who will see this through. And what they do in terms of coming back, if they have to come back, that's really their prerogative. But they're going to have to go back to you. I mean, you're the gatekeeper, obviously.
You really want people to come back to us?
I'd like to see it finished.
Anything else, Lauren?
No, thank you.
Dan?
No questions.
Mike Smith?
So I have a basic question. I know you described in general terms that the prior developer was in default, but how did your client acquire the project? Did it acquire it by buying it out of bankruptcy?
Correct. Bankruptcy.
By bankruptcy. So there's a bankruptcy court order approving the sale of the property to you?
That's correct.
And did you acquire the architectural plans as a result of that and
Yes, we
everything
did.
else?
Yep.
You did?
That's in the bankruptcy order.
So there is some documentation that tells us what you bought. Correct?
That's correct.
All right. I think the point that Lori was making is that she's interested in making sure that there's some sort of time limit on a new developer coming in, because I think we then have to consider, I have no idea what the interest is, so this is a hypothetical, but that what do we do in the event that there isn't a developer who steps forward who wants to do this project and we can't leave the site in the condition that it's in?
Correct.
And so what do we do about it? I think that's her larger question, but something that we have to cross later on.
Yeah,
But she's
and
throwing- that's what she's
and
putting
that,
in.
and again, that, your village code is Mary Ann and Ed could, there are, approvals have expiration dates. So, and they're there for a reason, but they're often renewed if there are no conditions that have changed, but you have that fail safe in your code already. You have, you don't have these things that last forever, but
Except that what we're dealing with is it's not the developer who's seeking to renew it, who came before the board, who the board had approved as a developer, so to speak, who had whatever level of trust. It's your client coming forward and telling us they're going to flip the project to some developer who we don't even know. And so I think that the procedures for renewing the project permits may be some guidance, but I don't think that they really tell us what to do in this particular situation.
Well, the owner of the property, has a right to request those renewals, right? This property, when they lent to the prior developer, it was assumed that this project was going to get done, approved, and built. It didn't happen. So this, my client has the right to ask for these reapprovals because, again, a lot of time was spent on this. And, what they're asking for is really no change in the approval. So I understand what you're saying, but again, any developer, there's no guarantees. Any developer could come in. And I will tell you that we had a developer that was very interested in this, and I know the village is aware of who that developer was. And quite frankly, they didn't want to proceed because It was too much of a risk to go through this without the approvals on it. So that's why my client is taking that risk to make sure they get the reapprovals, and they're being very upfront. I mean, you know, I'm a land use guy for 27 years, and my client's being very upfront from day one that they want to be able to get these approvals and sell this to a developer that will develop this project. Now, what that developer does, I can't sit here to you or anybody else and state what they're going to do. If they want to modify it, that's within their prerogative, but they could also decide to build exactly as it is. And that's what we've been tasked to do, get these exact approvals and have them reapproved.
No further questions. Kevin?
No question.
Sarah, anything in the public? Sarah?
Sorry, was muted. There's nobody raising their hand to speak and there are no comments in the chat.
I missed what you first said. There's no one raising their hand?
Nobody's raising their hand.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions?
Did you want to acknowledge that letter?
I did.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Lori asked if I should acknowledge a letter from Ann Atchison, and I think I did.
And I did as well.
Okay, you got your homework, and we'll see you next week. Next month, rather.
I was hoping next week, but thank you.
Well, we want all those answers by tomorrow.
8
You guys
8
too.
a.m.
It's gonna be a long night.
Well, I'm still in my
Okay.
office, so we're good. We got it covered. So
Okay, and you're gonna do the EAF, and we'll take a look at it.
yeah,
We'll
yeah.
read
Just to close the loop, I know we'll do long form EAF. I know you want some drainage information, and also Ed asked, what we're proposing to do in terms of sequence of construction. So we'll provide that for you for the next meeting.
When you're looking at the sequence, you might want to revisit the timing of when the Broadway buffer gets landscaped.
Right.
Maybe that'll accommodate some of the board's concerns,
Okay.
if that's something you want to do.
Yep. We'll go back and discuss that, but thank you, Ed.
In your wrap-up, you didn't mention erosion control, so put that down, please.
Yep.
Okay, we're done. Excuse me, we're done. Thank you very much. Again, we'll
Thank
see
you,
you next.
Chairman. Thank you, members of the board. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Good night.
Good night.
All right, that was the last item.
Yeah.
And any other items? Nothing?
No.
All right, that was the last item. The meeting of October 6th to the planning board is closed. Sarah, you can close it up. Thank you, Mary Ann. That was,
Bye-bye.
that was a long resolution for Mercy.
The first
Yeah.
and the last.
Sarah, get well. Thank you for being the gatekeeper from home.
No problem. Have a good night.
Right.
Be well, Sarah.
Thank you.